The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Black Christmas. I know Jeff would love that.
That is a really good movie.
Let's just throw Krampus in there while we're at
it. It's in Criterion Channel this month, Jim.
Krampus or Black Christmas?
Black Christmas. Black Christmas. And Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence is also in there right now.
Tenuous at best, but I'll take it if that's what we want to cover.
I mean, it has Christmas in the title.
In the title, that's all I need.
Excuse to watch a David Bowie movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, think about what you guys want to pair with Gremlins. I don't think Jeff wants to watch Black Christmas.
Black Christmas is pretty disturbing, even though it's like kind of low on the gore, slasher. Mm-hmm. But it's very
psychologically disturbing.
Yeah, it's like Halloween level, original Halloween level goodness. Okay, so shall we get into, now that we've got that squared away,
yes.
Sort of. Welcome everybody, happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, go. Yes, I'm already full of tryptophan.
I love this episode, this annual episode. I look forward to this all through the year when we can talk about Godzilla. But there's some bad news. There's a caveat to this.
What?
This particular year, we have now officially run out of movies that they used to play on Thanksgiving and the day after on WOR. So these are the last two that we are mining that they would play on those days. We're going to be left to our own devices in years coming.
So next year we can just make up our own schedule.
We still have that Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman whenever that appears to do.
I don't think they ever showed that on.
I don't know if we want to wait necessarily until Thanksgiving to do that.
No.
I mean, there are other Godzilla movies that we can watch that they
I think they made a couple.
show on TV. So.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. We have a whole lot of them to mine, but literally, this is the last of the two that they used to show.
Wow.
But so what we're talking about, this is a very nice pairing, by the way.
Thank you, Christina.
Almost, a too obvious pairing, but a pairing nonetheless. Son of Godzilla and Son of Kong.
Interesting.
Interesting is a very good word.
Interesting. Can I tell you right now that I'm pretty sure I've never seen Son of Kong.
Really?
Until I just watched it. Yeah.
Even uncommittedly, and it was on Thanksgiving, and I guess I'll watch.
Ring a bell. I don't remember ever seeing this. It was all new to me. So a 1933 movie. It's like the first time I'm seeing it.
You were a test audience for Son of Kong.
There you go.
They gave you a card at the end. You right?
Yes. And how'd you like it? I guess we'll find out. So which one are we gonna do first? I will say though that more so than Christmas, Thanksgiving to me is I love this time of year.
Oh yeah, I love it.
There is nothing more comforting than listen to L. Roker talk about the 60-foot Pillsbury Doughboy balloon,
and at the same time listening to the blustery day, the wind whipping the leaves outside of your window.
Yeah, I actually started the season off because I was at Radio City yesterday for the Christmas Spectacular, and it was the first time I'd ever seen that.
I've never seen it. It was
spectacular. I mean, that's not hyperbole. I was blown away. It's completely immersive. It's snowing by the end of it.
Were the Rockettes there?
Oh yeah, they're the centerpiece of the show. All 36 of them. I think there was I think we counted 12 costume changes.
Radio City Music Hall presents the Magnificent Christmas Spectacular. Watch the magic happen as the fabulous Rockettes bring the toy soldiers to life. your tickets now at the Music Hall box office, Ticketron, or call Charge It. Fall head over heels in love with The Christmas Show.
Hopefully we've set the mood for you. So now we are steeped in Thanksgiving Christmas lore. I think we're ready. Son of Godzilla, I believe, will bring
We're going to do Godzilla first?
I believe that will bring the punters, if you will allow me to use that phrase from last week.
Well, that was from last week.
From 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, as a matter of fact. Son of Godzilla is a 1967 entry into the Godzilla Showa series. The 8th Godzilla film made by Toho Studios came out in December. It was a Christmas movie, 1967. Wow.
There you go. Why did it have a TriStar logo at the beginning of this?
Because it was owned by Sony for a few years once they came out with that terrible Godzilla 1998 with Matthew Broderick. They also got the rights to a few other Godzilla movies in the back catalog. I don't think they own it anymore.
That movie will never get any love in this circles here.
But that's why you see a TriStar logo on whatever DVD that you got.
It was a little off-putting. It was like, that's start a Toho movie with a
TriStar.
Pegasus.
Yeah,
right.
Did you see at least the Toho, the logo after the TriStar? Okay.
Yes, correct. Yes, yeah. I have the DVD. I think it was part of a box set, but yeah. I do like the little. It warns you of some sci-fi monster violence, and I'm like, I'm in. That's all I need to know.
So now this has always torn me. This film. Of course, being a diehard Godzilla fan from I can't even remember when I started in on my Godzilla obsession, but it was from before I can remember. So whenever you would scour the TV guide, every week you got that new TV guide, you would scour it line by line, day by day to see what programming was coming in the next week that you'd be interested in watching. And my eye was always looking for Godzilla. That's kind of like my default.
Your baseline.
And so every once in a while, and it usually was on either late Saturday night or Saturday afternoon, PIX or WOR, the syndicated stations here in upstate New York that came out of the city in New Jersey, would show Godzilla films that they had the rights to. And even when a lesser entry into the series like Son of Godzilla popped up, I'd be obligated to watch it. Sort of like watching the last 2 seasons of X-Files. You're in. You got
You're committed at this point. You got to commit.
Right? Yeah. Even though I begrudgingly did, I still would enjoy it in a stupid kind of way.
Still got to be better than Godzilla's Revenge.
Godzilla's Revenge has things going for it. As stupid as that is. I don't know.
I think I will take this one over Godzilla's Revenge.
I don't know. I think I'd be the opposite number.
Well, fair enough. That's fair enough.
But yeah, okay, Son of Godzilla. So there is a plot going on. They always try to throw in those human plots to have some.
I think the humans actually had more to do in this.
Yeah, this is a pretty good one.
Normally, as a kid, I would be mad. As a kid, I understand because it's 40. You don't get any kaiju action whatsoever, except you saw the giant mantis and you see Godzilla in the water for like a split second, and then it's like all human stuff, and you're like, all right, just give me the monsters. Yeah, it was like 45 minutes before they show up.
They're doing this science experiment where if you know anything about science, you're like, sure.
Yeah.
Well, when they're flying in a helicopter and they're like, wait, there's brainwaves attacking our radar. I'm like,
yes, yeah.
How it works, I know.
So the backstory is these scientists are on this remote island and they're doing weather experiments. Because as we all know, back then, the world is going to be overpopulated in generations to come. And if they can control the weather in places like, the deserts of the world where they could make it rain or less arid so they could grow crops. And that's what they're doing. But
wasn't this the whole plot of the Avengers with Uma Thurman and Sean Connery?
I
controlling the weather.
It was. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, I 100% blame these people for global warming, by the way.
But it seems all they can do is make things colder on this island.
Well, it's probably warm. It's a tropical island. They want to
unless they screw up and then they have they go into the stratosphere.
I don't know. There was like their base camp just looked like every set from Lost in Space, and they're playing the Gilligan's Island theme going on. But
this
yeah,
the score is by Masaru Sato, who also
it's a fun
scored-
score, by the way.
He also scored Yojimbo, and he does love those bongo drums. He just
Yeah, but it is very playful. It is very
Mhm.
kid-like. And the background of scientific experimentation never leads to good things, and it doesn't here either. And as Jeff said, you get Godzilla right in the opening titles because there's just a plane flying overhead. They're getting scrambled signals, and suddenly they got to lift up. It's Godzilla. And I should point out that this is probably my least favorite Godzilla suit
The
ever.
googly eye Godzilla.
I didn't really find anything to really cement this, but I can only think that they were trying to make him look like who I refer to as Minya, because that's really what he's called in Godzilla's Revenge in the English dub.
right.
In some circles, he's known as Manila,
Manila.
but I call him Minya. So I think that they were
You
trying
wanna
to
know what
make
I call
him
him?
look like
Annoying.
his baby. And also, I did read this, that they were trying to make Godzilla more bulky and large to make him seem bigger compared to the little one.
Yeah, but if you watch this, the baby like changes size numerous times. Because at one point, when he first hatches out of the egg, he's riding on Godzilla's tail. He's tiny, and then by the middle of the movie, he already comes up to underneath his armpit. And I'm
He's
like, this thing
growing.
is like
He's growing
exponentially within like well. Again, they're like, how is this mantis so big? This giant mantises, and I'm like, well, you're throwing on radioactive balloons. You think maybe that has something to do with these?
Well, no,
monsters?
there's a throwaway line saying the heat must have activated their cells or something to that effect.
Well,
Okay.
that's the thing. It's a Godzilla movie, so of course, first of all, there's a huge mysterious egg that's just waiting for some humans to unleash radiation. There's always like this looming threat of human interference in nature in all of these Godzilla films. And then like with the costume, part of the issue was that the regular Godzilla actor Haru Nakajima did not play Godzilla in this film because he wasn't tall enough to do the proportions. So they got a different actor, but then that actor actually was replaced by another actor because he had broken his fingers halfway through the filming. So that's one of the reasons why you see the proportions changing. There's two different actors in the Godzilla costume.
And Nakajima, actually, he plays Godzilla in the first two scenes because they use the suit, which is a much better suit, by the way, from
Where
the
he's in the
previous
water, you're
two
talking
movies
about.
where he's in the water in the
Okay.
beginning.
Mhm.
So they only use him for like less than 5 minutes.
Huh.
Right.
And it's a great suit. And then suddenly it goes into this really goofy looking suit
Yeah.
that just looks terrible. And I'm so glad that they dumped it after this.
This
particular
is
film.
up there with the King Kong and Godzilla versus King Kong costume, because
That's kind of what Minya looks like, is that version of King Kong in a way.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's interesting about this film is that this is actually technically Toho's B team making this
It is.
movie.
Speaking of King Kong, yeah.
Yeah, because the A team was making King Kong Escapes, right?
King Kong Escapes was the movie
Yeah.
from this year. Yeah.
So this was sort of like the lower budget team, which is why they're like basically in one location. They're just on this island.
There's
not
no
a lot-
real, they don't have to build a city or anything. It's
Yeah,
just
no,
like
yeah.
trees and yeah.
Yeah, Godzilla's not rampaging at all. He's a bad dad, though. I'll tell you that.
The island already has exponentially large praying mantises, human-sized praying mantises. The hackneyed experiment that goes wrong that actually turns them into giant proportions. Now, one of the characters, I don't know which versions you watch. Christina, you probably watched the Japanese version,
I sure did.
but I watched, of course, the one that I'm used to is the English dub, so that's the one I chose to watch. And they called the mantises Gimantis. I think it's
Gimantis.
the character of Goro that names them. You see, giant mantis, Gimantis.
Yeah, I don't think that was in the Japanese.
In
I think-
Japanese, they're called Kamakuras.
Kamakuras, yes. And the spider is called Spaiga
Kumanga.
in the English
What?
version. Spaiga, yes, but
No,
he is
in the
Kumanga.
Japanese.
He is Kumanga.
Yeah.
Kumanga, who went on to have a lucrative career in Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, by the way.
Now, let me just tell you, for the B team of the Toho, filmmakers, these marionettes, and that's what they are, the mantises and the spider, are amazing. it just boggles my mind that the work that they could do. And apparently there's, I don't know how many guys were operating the spider, but I couldn't see the strings. I wasn't really looking for the strings, to tell you the truth, but
could see some of the edges of the set though.
I could see some of the matte painting edges. But just the work that they did, even as bad as that Godzilla suit is, I have to give it to them for the way that the mantis.
Does that take you out as a kid though, when you see stuff like that, or do you just, it's like, peek behind the curtain? Like,
when you're a kid, you're not really thinking.
No,
about it
not at all.
No, I mean, I'm just asking Jim because I know that you watch these things religiously.
And it's funny is that as a kid, I never ever paid attention to the human stories, what was going on. I was just literally sitting there waiting for the monster to show. So watching them as an adult, I'm for the first time paying attention to what these plots are actually doing. I'm like, oh, now I'm kind of into it, the whole thing. But yeah, so these guys are stuck of course they're going to get stuck in some way, shape or form because they find a native girl on the island. She's not really a native girl. She was just left behind. She was there with her father who was experimenting after the war. And her father died and kind of left her. And that why she can't really speak English, which is what is apparent on the English dub.
That's weird because in the Japanese version, she just speaks fluent Japanese.
She just speaks normally, right?
Yeah.
But this is like broken English in the dubbed version. And
And Goro,
they dumbed her down.
Who's the freelance reporter who parachutes down heroically at the beginning of the film. Actually, she says one word in Japanese and he's like, "Oh, you're Japanese?" And she says, "Yeah." And then she explains about how she lived there with her father. So that's really weird that they made that choice.
Yeah.
See, this is sometimes, where these translations, you really wonder what they're thinking.
They go awry.
Yeah.
I did love the fact that he sees a woman swimming and immediately pulls out his camera. I'm like, you're a freaking creep. What are you doing? Let me take a picture of her.
But he reminded me of the Jeff Bridges character in King Kong because he's like the stowaway, right? But he parachutes down, looking for a story.
He's like, all right. He's like, you're not part of our team. He's like, I'm washing dishes. I am a part of your team now.
And by the way, him and the girl that they discover, played by Beverly Maida, they do everything. They literally do everything. They run around. They're like, we'll put up the antenna and we'll get the boat blown up at the end. And like, we'll do all this stuff. And all of these guys are supposed to be there doing the experiments are just sitting around waiting for them to take control of the situation.
They got hired hands now.
With their thumbs up their posteriors.
I did like the fact they met like 5 minutes ago and they're madly in love with each other now.
For Akawa, who's played by Yoshio Tsuchiya, I don't know if you guys recognized him from a couple of Akira Kurosawa films we watched. He played Rikichi in Seven Samurai, who is the farmer whose wife is kidnapped. And Kohei in Yojimbo, again, his wife is kidnapped.
But you would know this, right? These are Toho players, correct?
Yes, they are. They're Toho players. And the interesting thing too about Furukawa was the character's name, about Tsuchiya is that he had wanted to be in Godzilla. He actually loved science fiction. He loved monster movies. And he was frustrated because he was in Seven Samurai, which, as you know, famously took much longer to shoot than it was supposed to. And he was asking to be in Godzilla and he wasn't able to be. And he was able to come back he was in Godzilla Raids again. And then he's actually in a ton of not just Godzilla movies, but different Toho sci-fi movies. He's in the Mysterians. He's in like all these other films. He loved to play in those kinds of films.
I wanted to ask this because I knew you were going to watch the Japanese version. Mm-hmm. At one point, what is her name in the Japanese version? The girl's name.
I just blanked out. I need
Reiko. Does it start with an R? Riko.
R-E-I-K.
At one point, she says,
Seiko.
Seiko. At one point, she says to Goro when she steals his shirt off the line when they first discover her. You stole my shirt. What kind of a boy would wear a shirt like this? She says. So I'm just wondering if that line was in the Japanese version. Okay.
It's similar. It's not exactly the same, but yes, she basically says like boys don't wear bright colors like this.
Yeah.
And he says, obviously I'm a boy, but then
Yeah.
he gives her the shirt. The other person I want to mention, if you are a Godzilla fan, you should recognize him, Akiko Hirata, who plays Fujisaki. He's sort of the unofficial ambassador of the Godzilla films. He played Serizawa in the original, and he's in, like, I think he's in every Godzilla film. I mean, I'm hard pressed to think of one that he's not in at least a bit part. Interesting thing about him is that he joined Toho, as you know, we've talked about this before, this sort of studio system where you join the studio and then you were like a stock player for a studio. We had the same system in the US for a long time. He joined Toho under the New Face program, which is how Toshiro Mifune became a Toho actor.
It's the character of Morio that goes crazy, right? He's the one that's shooting off the gun and what have you. I think that's his name, Morio. But my son added another level of hilarity to this, because every time this guy would show up, he'd say, "It's a me, Morio." And but also, I just want to also point out Minya's various sound effects. That sometimes it sounds like wah 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 wah, or when it's really young. I think they must have actually recorded a real sick dog, because that's what it's. Yeah. So it's all these pathetic sounds.
The character's pathetic. Yeah. It's this poor kid. Just
it's like the Kamakuras wake him up, like break him out of the egg just to beat him up.
Yeah,
they take him out and then they're like batting him,
poking
around.
him. Yeah. And you can tell early on he's just like a hand puppet. You can't even stand up. He's just laying on the ground being abused, throwing rocks at his head. Then Godzilla's whacking him with the tail.
I know, and Godzilla threatens to hit him a couple of times.
I know, you want to go backhanded. That doesn't fly today, young man. But I guess back then that's how you kept your kid in line. Outside of these two movies, outside of this and Godzilla's Revenge, we never saw Manilla again.
He's in Destroy All
Monsters.
Oh, he is Destroy All Monsters.
Yeah. Which is the follow-up film to this, which is on just opposite ends of this Godzilla spectrum, this and Destroy All Monsters, which is crazy. And Destroy All Monsters actually features my favorite Godzilla suit. So the worst immediately followed by the best, in my opinion.
But he never grows up. Right?
He never grows up.
We never see an adult version of this.
Yeah, character. After Godzilla's Revenge, he is done. You never see him again until you get to the next series in the 90s, and there's another version
for adoption
of him. The final battle takes place in a snowstorm. So Godzilla takes on Kumonga, or Spiga in the English version. There's a battle with a spider, and it succumbs to Godzilla's atomic breath. So then Godzilla tenderly wraps Minya in his arms, and then they go to sleep. And then, of course, Goro is reassuring the audience that they're not going to die. They're just going to go to sleep and hibernate. But I read that there was a scene that they cut out where Godzilla starts to leave the island and leaves Minya behind. Once it starts to snow, he makes it to the coastline, changes his mind, and comes back. And they cut that out.
You know what he's in? He's in Minya's in All Monsters Attack.
That's Godzilla's Revenge. That's what we're saying is Godzilla's Revenge. That was the English version title of All Monsters Attack. Yeah.
Don't know these English titles.
That's why I'm confused sometimes, because I'm like, wait a minute. That's why at first I thought this was Godzilla's Revenge.
If you translate it from the Japanese, the title of this movie is Monster Island Decisive Battle, Godzilla's Son.
That's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful right there. Toho were trying to go for what they called at the time the date crowd, the young crowd that go on dates to go to the movies by introducing Godzilla's Son and trying to humanize the monsters. It made 260 million yen, which breaks down to about $2.2 million, which is pretty good, I think, for a movie coming out in that time. And that's just in Japan. It was released directly to TV in the US. Didn't even hit theaters in the US. It was sold to television via American International in some markets in 1969, 2 years after its Japanese debut. So there you have it. Again, as Christina said, the big talent in Toho was all taken making King Kong Escape. So the second stringers were left to make Son of Godzilla.
It was still a fun movie.
Still a fun movie, yeah.
Fun.
It's sort of like what they used to call in old Hollywood a programmer where they used to make like these short like B-type westerns and things like that, or like B noir films, and they would kind of, you know, throw them in as like the second feature, because you know, you used to go to the movies and the films would run all day. You'd have a serial, you'd have the newsreel, you'd have a main feature, you'd have a second feature. It'd be like a programmer. That's almost like what this is like. You know, it would almost be like the second feature to something else.
Like the
you
B
know.
side of an album, 45.
Yeah, and something like this, if it was released in America theatrically, they would be definitely a drive-in movie, probably part of a double feature even here as well. But there you have it. So I'm almost hesitant to give this buckets because they're not going to be a lot
I think
compared
these
to
maybe bucket proof. Do we actually rate these Godzilla movies? Have we in the past?
I
Or we
don't know.
consider
know,
them
have we?
bucket proof? I'm trying to. I don't know. I mean, I did write down buckets, but I'm willing to just say, listen, they're bucket proof at this point.
So if I were to make a list right next to my MCU list of all the Godzilla
This is right
movies,
down there with Eternals.
I think it would be at the bottom with Eternals.
Wow.
Yeah, even lower than Godzilla Raids Again. Even lower than that.
Wow, I would have to put this above Raids Again, but not by much. I enjoyed it.
know.
I had fun with it. You know, it is one of the few where the human element is actually a little bit interesting.
I think Terror of Mechagodzilla is one of the wackiest Godzilla movies I've ever
Well,
seen.
I've never been
So
a big
this,
fan
This
of,
comes
Smog
above that for
Monster.
sure. But and Ibra is extremely weird.
That is
So-
weird too, but I can't get around this suit. The suit is terrible. The
Yeah.
suit is terrible.
Yeah.
So I mean, we don't have to rate it. We can just
Yeah.
let it be.
Let
it
it
is.
be.
Just let it be. Just let it be.
Now, I don't know if we want to let the next movie just let it be. There's some things seriously going wrong with our next film. So let's go
What?
to the concession stand
Oh, interesting.
and we'll
Okay.
come back
All right.
for Son of Kong.
Thursday afternoon, see 3 of the screen's greatest thrillers. Starting at 1 with the greatest of them all, the one and only original King Kong. Then the action continues with the Son of Kong, followed by the Mighty Joe Young, a classic tale of Beauty and the Beast. A full afternoon of action and adventure. Thursday afternoon at 1.
All right, we're back. Son of Kong, cash in, probably the best example of a quick cash in. This was released 6 months after King Kong came out, the same year King Kong came out.
Yeah, this thing was
released.
written, filmed, edited, scored, and released all within like 7 months.
And you can
You can kind of tell. You can really tell.
All right. Well, I just mentioned at the top of the show that this is the first time I do not remember ever watching this. So this was my first showing. Enjoyed it immensely.
Even the length reveals its limitations in budget. It's like 69 minutes long. An hour and 9 minutes is the length of this thing. And it seems to be much longer to me. It's 69 minutes.
Well, it's not exactly fast paced. I mean, they don't even commit to going to Kong's Island until 29 minutes in.
Oh,
So
man.
there's a lot of quote unquote setup that it just seems like they're kind of wandering around in circles. Before we start, I do want to mention, I know this is a weird thing, but this movie uses picture credits, and I've meant to mention this when we did Scream and when we did Little Shop of Horrors. I love picture credits. I don't know why. I just think it's nice to match a face to a name and you're not like searching the cast list.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that makes sense.
and I meant to say it when we watched Scream, because it's actually one of my favorite things after watching that movie, to see all the cast in their picture credits. But this movie uses picture credits at the beginning, and it's kind of the most exciting thing that happens for about 30, 40 minutes of the film.
Even those picture credits, poor Charlie, he's not even given a name in the picture
Not
credits.
even given a name.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know. I enjoyed that at least they picked up where Kong left off, where Denim is like, he's like hiding out because people are suing his butt because of all the damage Kong had done. He felt bad, but not bad enough to not have a giant Kong poster in his
Correct.
apartment.
Yes. Yeah. So he's still a bit proud of what he did there.
Yeah, but he did apologize to the ape.
But before we even get into Denim, Is it the National Rifle Association that is name dropped at the beginning? Did you see that on your version? The NRA before the RKO thing
but
comes
I wasn't
up?
sure. I'm not sure what that was.
Yeah, I
though.
didn't. That was my deficiency. I did not look that up
I
either.
didn't write that down.
But yeah, so it picks right up where King Kong left off. Denham is being sued by the entire city of New York for Kong's rampage. Interestingly enough, there's only a few characters that carry over. Denham is one of them.
Mhm.
Charlie, the cook from the ship on the original Kong, and is it Engelhorn is his name, the captain, the
Yes,
ship
Engelhorn,
captain.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So apparently only those actors wanted to sign on.
Well, no, the Witch King. So when he goes back to the island and is immediately confronted, they're like, we remember you, idiot. But yeah.
This is the whole thing, though. Structurally, this is basically the opposite of King Kong. So
Yeah,
in
you
King
could-
Kong, they're trying to get to the island as quickly as possible, right? So that you can have all the action that follows from, discovering the monster. They don't actually get to the island until the last half an hour of the movie. So it's like they're meandering around on a boat.
The world, yeah, because
Yeah.
Denham, I guess Engelhorn is also in hot water because of his part in Kong. So they want to run and hide. They want to go AWOL. So Denham goes with them, and they just want to get a haphazard crew together and make their living on the high seas. And that's what they're doing. For, like Christina says, the first half of the movie, they're not even considering going back to the island.
No.
Not like Jim says, it's not exactly fast paced. You have like a lot of stuff where you're saying, like, why am I watching this? Why is there like an interlude with small monkeys playing instruments?
I do want a monkey band now. After this. But that's also where we're introduced to Hilda, who is no Fey Ray.
Who, again, here, she's never referred to by name, I don't think, in the movie. We just know she's Hilda from the credits.
From the opening credits, yeah.
She's introduced by her dad as La Belle Helene. And then Denham only calls her Kid.
Kid, yeah.
And he is completely dismissive of her. And she's also saying to Denham, like, I won't be any trouble. I'll just sit on the ship. I won't talk or anything.
Right. Yeah, and he was actually like, that's it. Yeah, just keep your mouth shut. At one point, when he walks away and he's like, she has personality as long as someone told her what to do with it. And I'm like, that's horrible.
So yeah, Denham doesn't come off very likable in this. And then they end up together at the end, which is even more terrible.
I don't buy that at all. Although this is also where Hellstrom, who this guy is like John Lovitz's the pathological liar character in Saturday Night Live. He's like, yeah, there's a treasure map. See, and Morgan Fairchild's there. That's it. Dig it.
And they try to tie him into the first Kong by saying that Hellstrom is the guy that sold Engelhorn the map. Or Denham or whoever to get to Skull Island. And then Hellstrom ends up killing Hilda's father inadvertently because her father is the one that runs the monkey show. And then they all want to take off because now Hellstrom is a murderer. So he wants to get on the boat. He tells
this is very
Engelhorn
convoluted
that there's a treasure on Skull Island. So that's what makes them go back.
He completely made it up, right? But
he made it up.
Was a treasure.
But
there was a treasure.
Yeah. They need a happy ending, right?
How lucky were you that there's actually a treasure?
20 minutes to go until the movie's done. And then we finally are on the island and we meet Son of Kong. And, that's just their opinion. We don't know if this is the actual Son of Kong.
Right. He doesn't look anything like him. As a matter of fact, I think that Rankin Bass owes these people a lot of back pay because this guy looks just like the friggin' Bumble from Rudolph. Even at one point, his eyes are doing the googly roll thing. Willis O'Brien, what are you doing?
Not for nothing, but where do these quote unquote sons come from? Like, are they just like little spores that like
how does that happen? Spontaneously?
An asexual conception.
He just pops
there never seems to be any mom Kongs or mom Gojira around. So, I was just wondering.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of theory that Godzilla might be female. I've heard that put out there that Godzilla is not male necessarily. I don't know. Little Kong was known as Kiko, like King Kong for short.
King Kong, K-I-K-O.
Yeah. But he's never called that in the movie itself. But he is stuck in quicksand once our
why do they call it quicksand? It's really slow.
Denham and Hilda find him and they help him out of a jam. So they knock down a tree.
But that's after we got a stowaway, we got a mutiny going on. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
The most boring mutiny in the history of the world.
Bon voyage, Captain.
But I did like when they threw Hellstrom overboard. He's like, I'm the captain now. What?
Yeah. No, I haven't. We didn't overthrow this for a new captain.
Kiko gets out of the quicksand and he befriends Denim and Hilda from this point on. So there's a couple of monster battles. There's a bear versus Kiko
There's
battle.
a cave bear.
A cave bear battle.
This is where the budget really shows where it's lacking because the Strachosaurus is pretty impressive.
And Peter Jackson actually has that
I
very
did see
model
that.
to this day.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
But that dragon, like, is it a Patasaurus? Is it a Komodo dragon on steroids? Like, what is this thing?
It's pretty cool. Whatever it is, that's pretty cool.
It's like, yeah. I guess if I was, making a monster to fight this thing, that's probably what I'd come up with.
So you could tell this was a really a rush to get this into theaters. So that's probably why there's all this buildup, is because they didn't have the time or the budget to do a lot of special effects here. So it's all sequestered to the end. But they do try to shoehorn a lot of this action in. There's at least 3 or 4 dinosaurs that you see that Kiko sometimes
gets
fights.
Eaten by a sea monster.
Of course, at the very moment that the human cast finds the treasure, there is a sudden earthquake that completely sinks.
This is
Skull Island.
A typhoon. You got a flooding.
The whole time you're watching it, you're like, okay, so the whole island is sinking into the sea. Sure. Like this seems plausible. About as
Again, that's not how it works, right?
As a weather balloon and silver iodide changing the weather in the last movie. Yeah, I mean, this is where you're like, so you introduce this little character, this cute little character, and Denim's out there, feeling remorse about what he did to his dad. And what happens? They let this character just sink into the sea. Why? They couldn't have put this little guy on a boat. He couldn't have swum next to them.
Yeah, I mean, aren't they looking forward? If they're putting this out in the theaters so quickly, then why are they ending it? The story after this. It's like they realized how terrible this idea was.
They're like, we have to kill this.
They're burying it before the movie's even released.
Too bad, because I would have loved a pairing with him and Manila, the two of them together. It would have been a buddy.
But it could have been, like another Kong. If he lived at the end, if they brought him back, they could have gone other places with it.
I did find it funny that he was being mauled by that bear, and yet he started crying over a splinter. I'm like, that bear was doing some serious damage to you.
I'm not sure this is supposed to make sense, John.
No. Well, once the island starts sinking, they lost me. I'm like, that's it. So all the people that were on the island, all the natives, the indigenous
I know.
people,
It's like
they're all dead. Yeah, they're all dead.
Right.
So all those dinosaurs that we met in Kong are gone. This guy's just like destruction in his wake, like wherever he goes.
The natives, they paid for not hosting Denim this time, so with their lives.
Right.
It's funny that you say that, because I found this Collider review of this movie in which the reviewer, whose name I've forgotten now, said that, this movie traumatized him because little Kong dies at the end, and he's like, so what does Denim do in the sequel? Push Kong's mother in front of a speeding train.
I'm not done with you yet. I'm gonna take out your whole family. Speaking about that, did you see the whole backstory of Willis O'Brien?
Yes, that's terrible. Horrible. He refused to speak about Son of Kong because what was going on behind the scenes with his family during the making of this movie.
Yeah, that would traumatize anybody.
So, if anybody's not familiar with the lore, his wife killed their 2 sons and tried to commit suicide while this movie was being made. That is what happened.
Yeah, and he was barely on set at this point. So a lot of the special effects and the optical went to other designers and animators. So I think he even asked to have his name removed from this, but they wouldn't do it. There. Yeah, no, you're gonna write that. So,
but yeah, it was the same creative team, same director. It was Willis O'Brien's name was on this. Max Steiner did the music. So everybody's coming back, but this plays more like a footnote to Kong, if at best more than a sequel.
There's a review I found from Variety, and it says, this is the sequel to and wash up of the King Kong theme, consisting of salvaged remnants from the original production and rating as fair entertainment. It is concerned mostly in building up the explorer's return to the island of prehistoric animals, which cuts down the actual running time of the trick stuff to perhaps less than 25% of the total footage.
Yeah, that is true.
And then it talks about the holdovers in the original cast and then says Helen Mack is the girl this time, called upon to be a brave creature in place of Fay Ray, who was directed into doing nothing but screaming.
That
was
pretty
the
much
end
sums
of
it up.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's pretty accurate.
And it's interesting. The characters played by Fay Ray and Bruce Cabot are never mentioned or referred to during Son of Kong either. And then at the very end, when you have the survivors in the boat after Skull Island is sunk, Hilda makes Denham do some math. She's like, well, let's split it 3 ways, the treasure. 3 ways? There's 4 of us here. A third to the skipper, a third to Charlie, and a third to us. What? Us? Well, you said stick to you, and I'm listening to you. It was just a gag.
So slow on the uptake.
Yeah.
I would have pushed him overboard, by the way, and kept everything for myself.
I read a couple of reviews where they were actually favorable. The New York Times, low melodrama with a number of laughs, they said.
I don't know if they were going for laughs. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. So.
I mean, I think the whole time, though, if you're a fan of King Kong or even, of Mighty Joe Young, you're sitting there kind of waiting like, okay, where's the title character?
Yeah.
At least in Son of Godzilla, they give you that taste of Godzilla right at the beginning. So you're not sitting around waiting for that first appearance.
Yeah, he's in it, right? Eventually.
Ruth Rose was the scriptwriter. I'm hoping that she didn't write the Denham's dialogue. Working title was Jamboree. So that's right up there with Blue Harvest and Return of the Jedi.
Jamboree.
They had to keep this top secret.
Nobody should know when it's out either.
Yeah. But yeah, like this pretty much, even though the original Kong went on in infamy and it was re-released many times, I think this just sunk into oblivion. Its budget was $269,000. It made back $616,000.
Made money.
Made its money back, more than double its budget. Robert Armstrong, who played Carl Denham, of course, preferred this movie to the original Kong because his part was
because he had. Well, I was gonna say he had more to do.
I can't say the same. Sorry, Mr. Armstrong.
And that's how we're gonna end this.
Yeah,
it's true.
Oh man.
Wah, wah.
All right, let's break out the pumpkin pie.
Next Thanksgiving, we're going to have to get creative on what we're going to cover here.
Well, you just threw out a couple titles here in this episode alone that we could easily dive into. So
King Kong Escapes, yeah, that's
Escapes.
one. Maybe
immediately comes to mind.
Ibera, yeah.
Which is the first time my son saw that, he's like, why is there a scary lobster? It's just no way around.
Yeah.
It's a lobster. Yep.
Just seems like so much trouble to make a giant lobster.
They have so many, little antennae and stuff.
Yeah, I know,
them,
moving
right?
and it's like something much more effective. I'm sure could be made for much less money and effort than this.
Oh my gosh, please let's do Ibra. I'm so committed now.
There's a lot of interesting backstory to that too. So I would like to do Ibra at some point. Yes. Maybe next year we'll do Ibra and we'll pair it up with King Kong Escapes. That could be on the cards. All right. So thanks for listening.
You heard it here first, folks.
Now thanks for listening to our 4th annual Monster Spectacular for Thanksgiving.
Never gets old. Yes.
And next week, we are covering the new Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah, they're already showing way too much in the trailers.
That's why you can't watch them.
Stop.
Can't watch them.
I get it, but
this is why, when we had the discussion last week about 2 weeks ago about potentially reviewing trailers, I said Jim couldn't do it because
I couldn't do it.
His eyes.
No.
But he listens to it sometimes.
And we mentioned Peter Jackson in this episode. So what are we covering along with Ghostbusters next week?
We are covering The Frighteners, which is just one of my all-time favorites. I think it's a hugely underrated, underseen film. I think it's gotten a little bit of a cult following in some of the intervening years, but this, I think that more people should watch The Frighteners.
Well, we will be watching it.
Yes, we will. So come back next week. And as always, thank you for listening.
Yes, and happy Thanksgiving, folks. Enjoy.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIconfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
You see, giant mantis, gigantus. Wah, 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 wah.
Bon voyage, Captain.